Welcome to That Backyard Property Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Killiner, and I'm a father, a husband, and a mortgage broker. Our goal is to inspire, educate, and empower people through property. Whether you're a first home buyer, whether you're looking to upgrade or downsize or invest in property, then we're here to help you. Each week, we'll have a special guest that's an expert in their field, and they'll guide us through all of your questions that you might have, plus a lot of other information. So let's do this. Welcome back to another episode of That Backyard Property Pod. Today is going to be a great day. The RBA is most likely going to cut rates, but more importantly, we have a guest in the studio, Elias Oostveen, CEO, founder of Home Integrity. My pleasure. Welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate you guys having me here today.
It's awesome. We had a brief chat earlier just about, it was 8 years ago that I used Home Integrity as part of buying our place here, and the service then was impeccable, and I continue to refer Home Integrity, and now we're here today and your journeys continue to grow.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride, but one I've thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah. It's I guess what is Home Integrity? We'll go through a few of the other things in a bit, but what's Home Integrity?
Sure. So we're a collective of builders. So we're builders, we're structural engineers, we're building surveyors, who love property, and most of all, we love helping people. So whether someone's buying a house, building a house, got a problem with their house or apartment or building, we just love diving in deep and demystifying construction for them and putting terminology in a speak that everyone can understand, and just really engaging with the relevant stakeholders to get the best outcome for our customers.
Funny you say that, because I struggled to put a picture frame on a wall, and getting the original report from Home Integrity, I was able to read it. Yep. So talking about bringing it down to layman's terms, it's absolutely the case.
Yeah, our clients really appreciate that.
Yeah. And so talking about property, it's obviously property being the dwelling, but if we looked a bit deeper into it, it's a home for most people. Yeah. I'll just ask you what home means to you, whether that's growing up or whether that's your first home or your family home. What does home mean to you?
Great question. So my family and I migrated over to Australia when I was 6 years old from New Zealand, because I got really bad asthma in New Zealand. So we wanted a really dry climate, somewhere I could be healthy again. And my parents didn't come over with a lot. They're European migrants themselves. But yeah, they got straight into the property ladder. Like, my parents would just work like 3 jobs, both of them, and just got into property really, really early. You know, bought a couple of duplexes in Carlisle, some units in Vic Park. And then for me, when they bought a block of land in Waterford and started the building process, I think I was about 14, 15 at the time, and I used to, ride my skatey on the slab, and I used to think it was pretty cool, and I could see the builders and the brickies and that sort of, doing their thing outside, and, my old man's a plumber and a boilermaker and just get his hand to anything. So I don't know, I just thought, being in property be really cool, be really fun. So yeah,
that's a really cool childhood in terms of talking about property.
Yeah.
That's early days. Most people don't learn that for decades.
Yeah.
And you were kind of entrenched in that right at the start.
I was like my parents, especially my mum, huge tight ass. So she just like instilled save in my brain from early days. So somehow I managed to scratch a deposit together, and by the time I was 23, I bought my first house in Mount Hawthorn.
Wow.
And it was a real shithole. It was a real fixer-upper, but man, I was stoked to get into it.
What was that feeling like? As a 23-year-old, most men haven't even worked out who they are by that stage.
Yeah, it was a bit of a leap of faith, and like I said, it took a long time to pull that coin together. But my mum was really shocked that I'd wanted this house, because it was so bad. It was a deceased estate in original condition, and she was like, why are you buying such a bad house? But I was frothing. I just couldn't wait to get into it, and
Yeah.
I spent way too much money on it, way too much time on it. But it really got me going. It was pretty cool.
It would have been a really good learning experience, a hands-on learning experience.
Very hands on. There was very few parts of that house that didn't get touched, maintained, replaced.
Yeah.
Very, very few parts of it. I think the only thing we ended up keeping was the brick walls, the roof structure and the roof, and the floor. We ended up pulling up all the plaster off all the walls, replacing all of the windows, doing an extension out the back. It was a big job.
Did you do that yourself, or
I didn't do any of the. I did little bits of the hands-on stuff, but I'm not a tradie by any stretch. But I kind of do a lot of other things. Yeah. I know which end of the screwdriver to use, and
you know how to hang a painting?
Yeah. I know enough to be dangerous. Yes, exactly.
Do you still have it? The property?
No. I sold that. Sold that when I got my builder's registration. Yeah, when I was 28. 5 years later, I moved from that into doing a few developments in Leederville, North Perth, and Mount Hawthorn. Yeah, just bought a few duplex sites and started doing what new builders do: build and move in and sell. Build, move in and sell. I think we did that
before it was trendy.
It was probably caused my divorce because there was, I think we did 7 moves in 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty hectic, but it was good. It was good. I managed to, climb the ladder pretty quickly, which is good.
It wouldn't have been the block. There wouldn't have been all the TV shows around
No.
that because, as I said, it's quite trendy now to want to do that.
Yeah.
But I imagine it must be quite hands-on and quite a big risk because the transaction costs are quite high.
Yeah, it was risky, but I think, well, I did time the market very well. The market was very, very kind to me. It was the first time I'd seen a market rally so hard and then come off so quick. It was such an interesting time, and it was. I kind of got caught a little bit, but learned a bit of a lesson at the same time. But yeah, it hasn't gotten any easier, I don't think. I watch some of my friends who are developers and builders, and man, getting good trades these days is so difficult. I think it was a lot easier back in my day when I was building. But
So what years are we talking for that period?
oh,
Because if it was a really strong market, you're pre-2014.
yeah. We're talking like early 2000s.
Yeah. Wow. And what, like you said, some lessons to be learned. What were a few of those?
Probably, I remember one house. We built 3 houses in North Perth, all side by side, and they were really nice places. We had an offer on the middle house, and it was a pretty good offer, but it wasn't like perfect. And I remember the first day of the home open, there was it really bucketed down, and there was some pretty good roof leaks, and water was coming through the downlights, and we'd spent all this money on this really good marketing campaign, and heaps of people coming through the home open, but it was pissing down with water and there were these leaks, and it was just like, oh no, like we should have taken the offer. We had a really good offer. Well, not a great offer, but a pretty good offer the week before. Yeah. And we unfortunately missed the market, and it just sort of kind of tanked after that, and we ended up having to rent it out for a period of time.
Oh wow! So it really did turn.
It really did turn. Yeah, it turned quickly. I don't think. Like there's been 2 cycles in my, like 2, probably 3 proper cycles in my experience, but I don't think people really understand just how quick property can turn. I don't see anything changing in the near future in Perth, certainly because of the demand, but yeah, it's pretty mental.
Yeah, it's amazing to see what's happened in the last couple of years, and especially helping so many first home buyers that Home Integrity also do as well. And they've made $100,000, $200,000 paper money because it hasn't sold. But people go, oh, this is pretty easy.
Exactly.
This is really easy. And then you think, well, you've been through a few cycles. I've been through a couple now, and I've seen the other side of it. And it's very different. It looks very different. The the discussions are very different. The barbecue conversations are very different when it's how much have you lost or have you had to get a personal loan so you could sell rather than I've sold and I've made X, Y, Z. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And I wonder when that will change, and it will at some point.
Yeah.
Not around the corner, but it will at some point.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
Maybe 11 o'clock today, things will change.
Maybe wait and see. What are you still doing developments? Is that still something that
I've definitely hung up the boots as far as building goes. Did a reno on the place we've got in Scarborough, and an extension on that, and I had a lot of fun doing that. Just plodded along. There was no pressure. Didn't take out a huge loan or anything. I did it slowly, so it was with my friends who are the tradies, which was kind of cool to catch up on site and have a couple of beers while talking about a few details. That part of building I enjoy, but the stress of customers, subcontractors, things changing. It's not. I really do take my hat off to builders. They're definitely doing God's work because it's very, very hard work.
Yeah, I don't think they get enough credit, and I feel like there's a perception that if you're a builder, you're making money, and it's generally not the case.
Yeah, it's super tough. I sit on the Housing Council at the Master Builders Association, and around that table there's small builders, medium builders, big builders, and since 2020, since COVID's hit, it's been really challenging. People think, oh yeah, these builders took on too much work, and they're greedy. It's absolutely not the case. For many people, they had to put down these slabs because they would never get into a home. An incentive like that from the government was their only opportunity to get into the housing market, and builders did their absolute best to accommodate. They've found homeowners find themselves in some amazing capital growth with these properties. Don't get me wrong, I can appreciate the rent they're paying and the mortgage, and I understand it's taken a long time, and there's lots of sides to the story, but no one ever saw COVID coming. No one ever anticipated the trade shortages. No one ever anticipated the increase in labour and material costs. That was a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, I remember it so vividly because our daughter was 5 weeks old. In terms of when that 40K was announced as a bonus for first home builders, and 5 week old, and the phone just went bonkers.
Yeah.
Absolutely bonkers. But people just didn't know what to do with it. But it then had that massive flow-on effect. We've got a really interesting one at the moment where banks have a certain progress schedule that they want to go by so that they get more money, they have to pay more money at the back end. And builders are obviously needing more money at the front end to pay subbies. And we're at this crossroads between this particular application where the bank's not budging, and you're just feeling for the builder because you're going back to them saying, well, we can't get the money unless you amend your progress schedule.
Yeah, right.
But I know full well that the progress schedule is stacked that way so they can survive, and you're telling them that they can't fund it that way. It's a really hard conversation to have, and it's really challenging because you're talking to a business owner and you know that the pressures they might be under, and there's just this hard line over this side.
I think we need to do more as industry leaders to try and bridge that gap with the big four and builders, because there's a disadvantage because no one gets to move, no one gets to put that money in the economy, and it doesn't get to flow around like it should.
Yeah, well, you also then have people complaining that they can't get into the market because there's not enough stock. Yeah. But the people that are building that stock aren't getting the proper funding to do it.
Yeah,
it's quite challenging.
It is.
Well, what do you think is some way of providing a solution in that respect? It's a big problem, but you must have a few thoughts.
I think it's going to be interesting what happens today with interest rates. I I'm pretty bullish that it will go down. Yeah, 0.25% would be fantastic, I think, for everyone. We need migration. That's actually what we need, but it's a bit of a double-edged sword because they migrate over here and they got nowhere to live. But on the same token, you know, our aspect of living is, you know, we want to live like, you know, 2 people in a 3-bedroom house or a 4-bedroom house, and we want our own separate study and we want our own separate theatre room. You know, a lot of these migrants come over and they're happy to live with their mum, their dad, their grandparents, the kids, all in, you know, a 3-bedroom house, and, you know, stack 2 or 3 kids in the one room. They're stoked with that environment. So I just think we need to allow immigration, but the right immigrants. I'm not saying there's by tradespeople. That's what I'm saying. We need tradespeople over here. That's because the tradespeople are going to build the houses. They're going to buckle down. They're going to get to work, and somehow tying that into keeping them in Perth, sort of not allowing them to go up north and doing the FIFO gigs, trying to keep them in Perth and incentivise them to be part of the Perth culture, not the FIFO culture.
Yeah, well, it's quite hard to keep someone back when they could earn 180,000 driving a truck as well. Yeah. Rather than building a home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to take some pretty tough legislation, but I think they can do it, and I reckon they'll get there eventually.
Yeah, it just takes time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If we then steered back towards home integrity, you've got quite a large team now.
Yeah. It's I think there's 24 of us at last count.
Wow.
So I think we've got 14 inspectors, 12 of which are full time. It's really interesting. We've been kind of bouncing between sort of 13 to 15 for a couple of years now. It's just we're in this. It's actually called this phenomenon called the Valley of Death. So when a business gets to a certain size, you've got to really double down on systems and procedures and making sure that all the back end works really, really well, because what got you to that point is not going to get you to the next level of growth. And I can really see that. I've seen that for the last 3 years. We've had modest growth. It hasn't been fantastic, but we're really great at what we do and how we do it. Profitability's there, but it just breaking through that ceiling has been very, very challenging for me personally, and very challenging for the business, but exciting at the same time.
Yeah, it's processes and systems. You want the perfect one, but you can't work out what the perfect one is until you go through some clunkiness and some failures and whatnot. Yeah. How do you overcome that obstacle? Because you're wearing a lot of hats as a business owner. How do you overcome that? Like, where do you spend your time? My
time is mainly spent in marketing and business development. I've got to say, I've got an amazing business partner, Glenn, who pretty much looks after all the operational stuff. So the admin team, the inspectors, I don't know how he does it. He's got so many direct reports. We really need to fix this, but he's such a legend of a business partner. So he really allows me to focus on the vision. You know, our vision's raising the standard. Go and talk to builders about doing things differently. Talk to developers. Talk to real estate agents, mortgage brokers, settlement agents, all the stakeholders in my industry. Just trying to figure out better, faster ways we can help our customers.
Yeah,
that's what I love.
Do you see yourself? You're such an integral part of the buying journey for somebody, but you're probably not praised as much as a real estate agent or a mortgage broker, but you're doing one of the most important aspects of the process.
Yeah, it's really interesting because there's this bliss point during the whole transaction of like a week to 2 weeks where the building inspector is the most important part of this whole transaction because it's a condition of the contract, right? It's, the buyers are like super stressed. Like, is there anything wrong with the house? Is there anything right with the house? Have we made a bad decision here? You know, they're hyper anxious. So, you know, for that period, you know, we're a very important part of the transaction. But before that, it's like, yep, what building inspector? Okay, do we need one? What's a building inspection?
Yeah.
And then afterwards, it's like, yeah, cool, thanks, we'll move on now.
Yeah.
But yeah, for that moment, it's it's super special.
Yeah. And you must also help people, and we're going to go into the mistakes and whatnot, but you must also help people avoid some catastrophic mistakes from those reports, or you don't generally find that's the case?
Oh, look, it's pretty difficult because by the time they're there with us, they've already signed a contract, and part of that contract there's going to be a building inspection condition. From that point onwards, it's our job to educate them on what they've signed, because 90% of customers just literally don't know what they've signed. They're like, oh, we've got a building and pest inspection. Okay, well, what does the building inspection cover? People just think it's the whole of the building. It's the fences, it's the pathways, it's the gates, it's the shed in the back corner. It's like all encompassing. But when you read the fine print, which spins me out that no one actually does, it's just to the residential building, and it's just to the structural elements of that building. That's the first big milestone that needs to be covered off on the buying journey. So just educating customers on, you know, it's footings, the slab or the floor, the internal walls, exterior walls, ceiling frame, roof frame, any retaining walls to do with the residence. They're like, oh, what about the roof? I thought the roof was part of the building. We can inspect it, but it's not an obligation of the seller under the contract you've signed for them to fix any problems with the roof. It's like, it's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. So just that education process, like we don't want to give people false hope that if we find stuff in a report that the seller's going to go and fix it. We want to be really honest and open with people.
Yeah.
So it kind of starts before us. I write lots of blogs. I put lots of publications out there to try and help people with that buying process. It's a real double-edged sword, isn't it? Like, you know, it's a real seller's market at the moment. You know, buyers going in with too many conditions, not going to be super favourable when there's multiple offers to be had on the table. It's super, super challenging for buyers at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I'm just thinking about all the information that a buyer's trying to process at that time, and how do you drip feed certain parts of the process at certain times, and your part as building inspectors is such an integral part. But you also don't want to put fear into a client, especially from my perspective, because at home, like, you've got the ability to provide the education behind it. So it's quite a tough thing to manage with expectations.
Yeah, and look, I think one of the best things that we do at Home Integrity is we do our very, very best to alleviate that concern. You know, we find stuff wrong with houses all the time, but giving our customers, our buyers, the right advice around, you know, well, this is the fix, or that's the fix, or this is the cause of the problem, you know, and if it's fixed correctly, you know, you shouldn't have any ongoing problems. Just people understand their secondhand house is going to come with some maintenance problems, might come with a structural defect or two. Knowing how to overcome those issues and understanding that if fixed correctly, there's going to be no problems. I feel like it's a little bit of our secret sauce, yeah.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I wish more building inspectors did it, to be honest, because that's the real value add. When you're a registered builder and you're doing a building inspection, that's the expertise the customer's paying for.
It's funny you say you wish more building inspectors do provide that service. I would have helped more than 1,000 people into their homes, and I've only ever seen home integrity reports.
Yeah, right.
I haven't seen any other ones because I don't know what's being provided in that space as well. So I don't even know what your competitors look like.
We do 120 to 150 reports a week. So we do a lot of, like, we do from inspections from Augusta all the way up to Two Rocks. So we've got guys in Bunbury, we've got guys in Mandurah, we've got guys in Perth Metro, obviously. So we do cover a fairly broad spectrum of the market. And yeah, we like to stick to our knitting. We're registered builders. We like to provide that advice that our customers find value in.
Yeah. And then I guess in terms of reports, most people would have heard of a building and a pest report. Yep. Pretty standard within a REWA contract, and in most other states, to be fair. What else could someone get from a report? Like what other reports could you get or should you get?
Yeah, so there's the other end of the buying process, which is the electrical, plumbing, and gas, good working order, which normally happens 5 to 7 days prior to settlement. A lot of our customers elect to do that themselves, run around with a hairdryer and test the power points and turn the lights on and off and test all the oven and the aircon and retic and that sort of thing. But some customers get us to do it. We do a lot of works for buyers agents. We will do the electrical, plumbing, gas inspection for them because they might be East Coast or international investors who might never see the house. Some people don't know how to check things adequately. So we do a little bit in the electrical, plumbing, and gas, and it's just basic function tests. We're not electricians and we're not plumbers. We're not putting cameras down drains or putting multimeters on switchboards or anything like that. It's a very basic function test, but it's great value, and we get to test everything. Yeah,
it's amazing when, obviously not talking about price, but if you're spending $1 million on a property, you'd probably want to outlay a couple of $100,000 to do those tests.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not a couple of $100,000. It's like for less than $1,000 you can get pretty much everything tested that that's going to align with the contract conditions.
Yeah. And then what sort of education, like, you are always out there, always your face and your knowledge is out there in the market. How else could we provide buyers with the right advice or right education around this space?
I think there's a lot of resources online. There's a lot on YouTube, obviously. There are a lot of really good real estate agents out there. There's great mortgage brokers like yourself. I think just getting a solid team around you, like knowing who your building inspector is, a bit like what John Hughes says about buying cars, pick a dealer first. I kind of feel like, if customers called us first before they went on their buying journey and just asked us a few questions, or, maybe flicked us an email, hey, I'm thinking about buying this, 1960s house in Floreat, what sort of inspection do you think I should have? But I'd be asking questions like, is it got a subfloor? Does it have a tiled roof or a tin roof? All these sorts of questions I'd be asking. What experiences did you have last time you bought a house? Like, what, was the shower leaking? Was there heat shields on the downlights? Those sorts of things. So, everyone's got a slightly different journey of buying previously. So just trying to take what didn't work last time and just tweaking it a little bit to make sure they have a better experience the next time.
I'd never thought about reaching out to to Home Integrity in this case before making an offer on a property. Yeah. I just never really thought about it. I always, as we've kind of alluded to, contract signed, you come in as the main part here, and then finance and whatnot. But reaching out prior is a good idea.
Well, that's what all my mates do. Like when they buy houses, they're like, hey, Elias, we're going to buy this place in Trigg. What do you think? Like, I'll have a drive past or check it out online and, we'll suss out a few things. How close is it to the boundary? What's the vegetation around the building like? Most customers ring us up and say, oh my God, I forgot to book in my building and pest inspection. I've got 3 days to get it done. Can you squeeze it in? So I don't know.
It's a funny one because I'm originally from Darwin, and so white ants or termites are your big scare up
everywhere,
there. Yeah. And they are everywhere, and you just don't want them in your walls or in the house. Do you find termites, like they obviously exist in Perth, but is it a common cause of damage?
Oh man, down south we do inspections in Bridgetown and Nannup, Margaret River, Redgate, Augusta. There's termites everywhere down there. Like seriously, and in the older places, we definitely do find some activity internally. Yeah. In Perth, it's great when we find them outside, like eating a dead palm tree or some timber in contact with the floor. That's great when we find that, because we very rarely find them inside the house. They're doing what they need to do. They're happy chewing on a bit of timber outside. Yeah. It's a lot of work for them to get into the roof space. Like they've got to get up behind a downpipe or up a cavity, or they've got to traverse a long way to get to some fibre that they actually like to eat. So they're subterranean creatures. So them finding something close to the surface is perfect for them. So I always say to customers, people freak out when you find termites anywhere on their property. It's like, it's good we found them in the backyard. They're doing exactly what they should be doing. They're not in your roof, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Maybe just move the palm tree.
Yeah, exactly. Or just get a little spot treatment and it's sorted.
White ants is just one of those things that is bred into me that beware of them. The other thing I hear a lot from worried buyers is whether a shed is okay for the dwelling, or whether the awnings or the patio is council approved and all those sort of things. Does those questions come up for your inspectors as well?
Yeah, that's a minefield, Michael. It really is. So the purpose of a pre-purchase building inspection under the Australian standard that is linked to the condition that most people sign up on excludes any comments or any mention of whether something's approved or not approved. It's just too difficult. Like if we come across a patio that us as registered builders can understand and see that this patio's been enclosed and now people are using it as a living room. There's a plasma bolted to the wall, but we can see the roof structures. It was an old patio with some new tin on it, and the wall structures are kind of a glorified shed that's not really a cavity wall that's going to pass any building code. We've got a duty of care as inspectors to mention something in the report, but we certainly can't be pulling plans, looking at the building plans that got submitted with the building permit and making sure it all is correct with the property that's been built. That is definitely outside of a pre-purchase inspection.
Be a minefield as well.
Yeah, and it's probably more the place of the settlement agent. A good settlement agent will pull all the requisitions, orders for the property, figure out how many building licenses pertain to that property and what structures those building licenses relate to. So at some point, it will get flagged.
Yeah. Just try and steer clear of it as much as you can.
Exactly. But, in Belden and Padbury and Careen and, all those areas where, subbies live and they get their mates around and they do little fix-ups in each other's houses, and add a lot of value to their properties as well. Sometimes they're not done as well as they should be.
Maybe.
Which is why we're around, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so where do you see home integrity in 5-10 years? What's the trajectory?
Well, I turned 50 last year, so I reckon I've got another good 10 years in me.
Halfway point, isn't it?
Exactly. I feel like, it's time to really shine. I'd really love to expand regionally across the state. I think we've got a lot more home integrity cheer to share across the state. So regional expansion is definitely on our strategic roadmap. After that, I don't know. I'll see sort of where we've positioned, whether we want to go nationally or not. I'm not really about being the biggest. I just want to add the most value and be the best at what we do. And I really want to explore some markets that really don't exist. we've been doing heaps of work with developers, like really good developers like Blackburn and Asperia and Edge and Urban. Yeah, they love working with us, and we love working with them. We can add a whole lot of value doing pre-handover inspections. That's been super fun the last 3-4 years.
So you've kind of deviated into some of that space then. Well, that wasn't really part of the plan originally.
It wasn't really, but through like a friend of a friend, we got our first gig, and it kind of just snowballed from there. And every time a big apartment building goes up, we seem to get a phone call and, can you come and help out with 230 apartment inspections? Like, yep, no worries, we got this.
Yeah.
So we've got a really good system of dealing with the builder and making sure that, what we pick up is good stuff to pick up. And the builders, acknowledge that, that there is a place for us to add value to the project. Even some builders, we're doing some work with some volume builders at the moment, doing some builder quality audits and some practical completion inspections as well, because there's some builders that are really conscious that they want to hand over a really high quality product to their customers. So they're not leaving quality a chance for other building inspectors to pick up. They're saying, no, we'd rather take care of it internally. Yeah, which is great. That's a net benefit for the customer.
Absolutely. Especially because most people don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really exciting. Just branching out into different markets, and I guess the hard part about doing that is you don't want to spread yourself too thin as well, and you're trying to work out, well, this is our lane. How many lanes can we go into? It's one that I'm fascinated about. You've got so many aspects of buying a property. And there's so many stakeholders involved. How much of that can we help with, or do we just sit here and do the finance? Do you help with conveyancing, or do you help with real estate or property or whatever it might be? It's quite fascinating how far you actually do go.
Yeah, and look, for me, years ago we dabbled in a little bit of pest control. Should we do some pest control? I was like, nah, it doesn't really float my boat. And should we get involved in fix-ups? We're builders. Should we get in? Nah, it's kind of a real conflict of interest if we start finding things and then we start doing fix-ups. And it's like, can we get involved in project management? Like we do apartment inspections and we find issues with older apartments when we're doing these 10-year plans, and strata managers are so like keen. Can you do some project management? It's just like it's not our core competency. Like I really love being a great building inspector and writing really good reports, and I just want to figure out where we can add maximum value, and that's the place where I want to focus all of our energy.
That's what gets you excited.
Yeah, same.
What's it when people talk about being a founder and a CEO? It's obviously got the tagline, but what does that mean to you?
Not a lot, really. Not a lot. We hired a consultant a few years ago just to help out with some high-level business strategy. And I said to Louis, you've worked with Michael Chaney and some other, really great, iconic business leaders. Like, what's the one thing, if you can give me any advice, having worked with these guys? He's like, they build good teams. They build outstanding teams. And I was like, wow, okay, I've never forgotten that piece of advice. And it's like, it's not, home integrity is not about me. It's about the team. And, I've read Good to Great 3 times, and every time I read that book, the level 5 leadership, I like always rewind it, and I just want to learn more about level 5 leadership because it's the hardest thing to embody. But I really want to build a fantastic team, and I want to be like a servient leader to my team. That's watching those guys have the wins and get the accolades, and when we win awards, it feels so great. It's not about me. Yeah, I might go up and grab the award, but man, I didn't win the award. The team won the award. The customer service won the award. The debrief won the award. The report writing won the award. It's certainly not me. It's the team and how they all come together and work. It's that really excites me.
Yeah. You can see it when you're talking about it. Like that's the passion that you've got when you're talking about the team is infectious as well. I think that's the part that I'm finding being a business owner, especially with young kids, is it can be quite lonely because it's hard to find people of the same values of you in terms of business and talking about Good to Great, amazing book. But I feel that I'm lacking in so many areas within that as a leader, and so it's really reassuring to sit down with someone that's probably a few years ahead of me in terms of the ownership journey, but also for anyone else out there that's listening that's a business owner or new to business or thinking about running a business. How would you tackle that? Because it can be quite lonely, and you don't really have anyone else to turn to a lot of the time because you have to learn on the job. What would your advice be for anyone that was thinking about starting or running a business?
You need to get really comfortable with eating glass and staring into the abyss, because no one's going to tap you on the shoulder and tell you, you're doing a great job. No one's going to, give you advice. Like it is rewarding and super challenging. Like it's gut wrenching, but it's the best thing I'll ever do. Like I started my first business when I was 20. Before that, the milk runs and papers and that sort of stuff, like all kids did. But I've always, I don't know why. I think it was my dad. Like my dad's always been a real go-getter. He's kind of instilled that in me, like indirectly. He's never really pushed me to do my own thing, but I kind of just gravitated that way. But yeah, for a business owner, you've got to get really comfortable making mistakes. You've got to get really comfortable failing, and you get super excited about a certain direction you go in and it just flops and you're like, oh, that was a complete waste of time, waste of money. Why didn't anyone want to buy this amazing product or take this amazing service? But your market's going to tell you what it wants to do, and you've got to be able to react very, very quickly and just drop a bad idea and go, okay, that's one way that doesn't work, and just taking it not as a failure, but as a way how it didn't work, and just being really comfortable with that.
Yeah, the failures is such a fascinating part, because you can be in such a tough place when you do fail, because you have to look within yourself, but then you realize in that moment that it's just teaching you for something that's going to help you in the future, but it doesn't help that particular moment.
100%. It's a double-edged sword, right? Because to get to that point, you have to be passionate about what you're doing, and you have to be all in on the project that you're doing. But if it doesn't work, you've just got to be all out in an instant and just get on with your life. If the more you lament, the more you wallow in it not working, the slower you're going to be able to kick off the next great idea.
I just had a thought. Did your parents ever thank you for forcing them to move, not forcing them, but moving to Perth? Because they could have stayed in New Zealand and possibly not realise the same success as going to Perth.
We're going deep now, Michael.
No, I was just thinking that.
No, that's a good question. I don't know. Like, for years I thought, I felt like a burden on my family because like they'd picked up their life in New Zealand and moved to Australia because of me, like solely because of me. But then it's like, well, it's the most beautiful thing you can do for your family. You're all in, you're a family unit, and whatever the family unit needs, if it's one person or all of them. But we've made a great life in Australia now. So yeah, it's been great.
Special. I finish off these chats because I love where this has gone. It's gone all different places, especially with the last part. But what are you most proud of as a person, as a business owner?
I really love my family. I really love my partner Mel and my daughter Lexi. I'm really proud of those guys, like being part of a little family unit. I love my little dogs. I don't know. It's a big question, Michael. I think back 12 years ago when my company went into administration and I, literally lost the shirt off my back and had to start again. I think I kind of got I don't know, it was a really, really tough time of my life, but support of my family, the support of my friends, and picking myself up and just getting on with it. I'm pretty stoked I did that because there's so much more in life, and I feel like that was a really, really shit time in my life. I went through a lot of adversity at that point, but it's really helped me to who I am today. It's really shaped who I am as a business person, who I am as a partner, who I am as a father, a friend, good, bad, indifferent. But it was, I wouldn't want to do that again because it was so
You would have
shit.
been 38.
I was 36, I think. It's 30. Yeah, I was 38 actually. You're right. So sub 40.
There's some big lessons to learn.
There's a good midlife crisis to go through
Yeah.
at that point. I'm glad I got it out of the way. Had a few of my mates sort of having some interesting times, but now, but yeah, I kind of didn't want to go through it, but I kind of needed to. Yeah, so I look back and I'm like, that taught me some good stuff. That taught me some really, really good stuff in business. I wouldn't say I'm risk adverse, but I take much more calculated risks now, and I've got a decision-making process that serves me much better now. It's very much less ego-driven and more, what can I do to help people? Because if you're helping people moving forward and solving problems, that everything else comes. You don't have to worry about anything else.
I love seeing what you do as a business owner from afar, and it's funny because you'd never know that, right, until someone tells you that. But I love seeing what you've done. I love seeing how you've built the team around you, and I love seeing the awards that you receive because of past experience. But you're obviously striving for something better.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that. And so I'm really pumped that you came in today. I think there's so much out there, and I feel that building inspectors in our industry don't get enough recognition for how important they are. And so you were one of the first people I thought of, because I thought your story is really interesting, but also what you can teach people is really important as well. So thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of our community at That Backyard Property Podcast. We would love it if you could like, comment, or even share with a family member or a friend that might get something useful from today's episode. We can't wait to see you again next Tuesday.